It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be doing some predictions for Season 8 of The Walking Dead and the All Out War story arc as adapted from the comics into the TV show. So we're going to go through the footage from the trailer for the 8th season and basically put things into perspective in terms of what's actually happening in the story and how the clips go together. So basically what I've done is take clips from the trailer and put it in the right order, or at least what I think is the right order in terms of what we're gonna see and how everything is gonna come together. So that being said, let's get right into this. First, this image of Ezekiel. I think this is most likely right after the events of 7/16, and this is King Ezekiel returning to the kingdom and basically telling his group about the war. We know that only a small portion of the kingdom fighters came to Alexandria in the finale of season 7. So he has to still deliver the news of war to his people. So that's probably what that is. And we have this image as well with Ezekiel and Carol. It's probably taking place at the kingdom, and it's probably around the same time as well. Then we have this next clip of Carol. Now, if you look at Jerry, he's not dressed in the same way he was dressed in the finale of season 7. So we know a little bit of time does pass from that time when Ezekiel, Jerry, and the other kingdom members, along with Carol and Morgan, return to the kingdom. And this is most likely when they're preparing for war, and Carol is probably training them how to fight. Then going from there, we know in the finale of season 7, Rosita was shot and she was injured. Same with Michonne, she was very badly injured. So I think those two characters will not be able to kind of go out and fight with everybody else because they're injured. So I think they go on a side mission by themselves, either looking for supplies or hitting a small outpost or something along those lines. So there's a few shots of Michonne and Rosita, but we do see in one image that Michonne is fighting. So Michonne and Rosita most likely run into more saviors. So before they go on this mission, we probably have a couple of speeches from Maggie and Rick, and that's when they basically tell everybody about the plan and unite the communities, maybe even have the communities meet up for the first time. And they also probably attach these shields to the cars so they can take those to the mission as well. If you take a look at this shot here, the car in the back, that's the same exact car that's in this shot that Aaron is driving. So they probably gather up the cars, get them ready, and then drive them towards the sanctuary. We have this shot of Enid telling Aaron that she wants to join the mission. We don't see Enid in most of the shots, so she's probably not involved in the actual mission itself, so she probably has to stay behind. So that takes us to the shot here. So if you take a look, Enid is on watch. There's no Cal, there's no Eduardo. Who are the people that are on watch at the hilltop? They're not there. Why? Because they're on the mission. Then we have this shot of Carl, probably out on a run. Now, based on the other video I did, this shot is there to mirror a shot of Rick in the season 1 premiere, season 1 episode 1. And it's part of what they're doing for the 100th episode to pay homage to the 100 episodes that they've made. So this is most likely in the premiere of season 8, probably going to involve Carl and Rick out on a run. We also have this other image of Carl, so it probably goes with the first image of Carl. Now we do know that they do get gas, just like we have here. We have Jesus putting a cardboard on the gas, and they're going to use that to draw walkers. And I'm going to get to that. But the first thing, because we do know that they have gas, and based on another image that was kind of leaked from Carl in the premiere, we know that Carl was carrying a gas canister as well. Just a side note, this is also another way for them to pay homage to the premiere of season 1, because in the premiere of season 1, there was also a shot of Rick with the same type of gas canister walking along the road, so it's also part of the premiere. But going back to the gas, so Carl and Rick go after gas, find gas. They use that same gas to put on the road, use that to draw walkers later on. So before we get to how they draw the walkers, let's first take a look at this. We have Morgan, Carol, Daryl, and Tara meeting up so they can kickstart this thing where they attract the walkers. That takes us to here, and they basically go into the city because obviously the city has a lot of walkers, so they know that that's the best place for them to go to attract a large herd of walkers to direct into some location, and I'll get to that as well. So once they're there, they notice this bridge and they basically go on top of the bridge, and that's where Carol watches Daryl go, and Daryl is basically now on his way to kickstart this herd. We have this shot. This is actually Daryl. He's holding this gun. This is the same gun used by Daryl. He shoots that same gas and it explodes. That's a way for them to attract the walkers. He does it on several occasions to attract the walkers, and then once that's done, the walkers are basically attracted to Daryl, and he basically moves them towards some location, most likely the sanctuary. I'll get to that. But once that's happening, because it's a slow process, we have Tara and Carol sitting on the bridge. We have Carol noticing the flower obviously here, but we have them waiting on the bridge, and this leads to this shot here of them on the bridge. They're waiting, and we have the walkers down under the bridge, and they're all being directed towards the sanctuary, and Daryl is there to lead them there. Once the walkers are on their way to the sanctuary, all of these survivors will most likely gather up and move towards the sanctuary to surround the saviors at the sanctuary. So we have the walkers coming in, but also the survivors will also go there. So we have members of the kingdom here preparing to go towards the sanctuary, and it looks like at this point they're kind of waiting, and maybe something goes wrong because they end up shooting. So maybe some groups of saviors attack them or something like that, and obviously the sound attracts walkers, so walkers come in, and that's probably what leads to Shiva being surrounded by a lot of walkers. And like I said in my previous video, Shiva most likely gets surrounded and ends up getting killed. And a continuation of the previous shot, we have what looks like Shiva's body on the ground there. Carl is fighting off some walkers. There's obviously a lot of smoke like we saw in the previous shot, so they're still killing walkers at this point. This is most likely not at the sanctuary. This is probably near the sanctuary, so they're just killing the walkers. So once that's done and they take care of the walkers, now they can actually go to the sanctuary. But before that, what they end up doing is letting Dwight know about what's going on, so he can work from the inside to help them get in. So we have this shot of Dwight. This is most likely Dwight noticing something. Just a side note, we have this guy in the front, this pretty sick walker in the front. But one thing I noticed is that the walker seems to have half of his face burned, just like Dwight, so he was probably a member of the saviors that went through what Dwight went through. So a bit of symbolism there, but it's pretty cool. So like I said, they want to let Dwight know what's going on, so they leave him this note that says tomorrow. So they let him know that they're gonna attack tomorrow. Then some time probably passes after this because they need to attract all of the walkers towards the sanctuary. But then what most likely happens is that Daryl, who's still on his bike attracting the walkers, goes very close to the sanctuary. So based on the statue that's here, we know that this is one of the main roads that leads to the sanctuary. So we have Daryl probably planting more of those bombs in here, and then obviously here we have some saviors coming back, some motorcycles in the back with some vehicles as well. They drive over this bomb and it explodes. So Daryl not only kills these saviors but attracts the walkers more and more towards the sanctuary by this explosion. So this takes us to this next shot. If you take a look, the car and the two motorcycles on the ground and the smoke and the fire, it looks like this is the exact same spot, and this is the aftermath of the previous explosion. So Daryl is basically waiting after the explosion. All of the walkers are being attracted towards the sanctuary, so he's just waiting, and then it's actually time for them to attack the sanctuary. So it seems like Dwight is outside because he knows that they're coming, and he's waiting for them. So then we have this shot of Maggie and Rick. This is most likely near the sanctuary, so they've all kind of moved to the sanctuary and surrounded the place before they let all the walkers in. So we have Maggie and Rick here. Based on the surroundings, we know these two shots most likely go back to back. One other thing that leads me to think that this is the sanctuary is the wall of the building in the back. If you take a look at the blue and brown pipes, those are pipes that we've seen on the walls of the sanctuary before. So we know this is most likely the sanctuary. So they get ready, everything is set up. So they basically create an explosion or something near the gates. That leads to the gate breaking, and then they can enter. So here we have either walkers or other soldiers walking into the sanctuary, and that basically leads to this, where we have Jerry and Ezekiel. They're covered in blood. Not exactly sure why they may be covered in blood. Maybe it's walkers, maybe it's saviors, I'm not sure, but there seems to be some kind of fight in here. We have this shot of Jerry. This is at the sanctuary as well, because if you take a look, we have the walker in the background that has the molten metal on the head. And once they have all of the walkers there and they surround the place, Negan and the saviors are most likely forced to stay at the sanctuary inside and they can't get out. This may lead to this shot with Negan being very angry. Maybe he finds out that the sanctuary is surrounded, and maybe he finds out that some other outposts have been hit. Like I said before, they may hit some outposts before they move to the sanctuary. And then here we have all of the saviors. So we have Gavin and Simon, which is very cool. We've never seen them together, and they all seem very mad. So they seem like they're kind of forced into one little spot and they have to find their way out. So that's pretty interesting. So then once they have all of the saviors surrounded and the walkers are kind of surrounding the place and everything, maybe they move away and maybe they go on another mission to hit another outpost. That's most likely what's gonna happen. This could obviously be before the sanctuary is attacked, but this is one of the times they hit the outpost. Like I said, this could be before or after they hit the sanctuary, so I'm not quite sure. But this is the same outpost that they hit in season 6. If you remember the episode Not Tomorrow Yet, I think it was episode 12 of season 6, they attacked that outpost, that satellite outpost, and murdered the saviors in their sleep. But it seems like they actually go back to that outpost, and we have a couple shots of them just, attacking that outpost, which is very interesting. This video was actually very long, so I had to split it into 2 separate videos. So to continue watching, click on part 2.